Hello. So I'm doing another fic. This is another Spiderfrost fic. So that's a Loki slash Peter Parker, Loki slash Spiderman. This is called A Statement by Alex Black. Just so you know, the link to the fic will be in the description if you wish to read it yourself. Peter was getting angrier and angrier by the minute. He knew Flash was an opinionated piece of shit, but now it was getting to him. I just don't think that should be allowed in public. I mean, come on, make up in a guy. He spat with a sneer. Things, he said. Things. Like they weren't even human, just because of their gender identity. Now, Peter himself was always comfortable with his gender, but he was close with Loki, and he knew Loki was gender fluid, and comments like that alone made his blood boil with rage. So he started to plan. At first, his first thought was a protest, but that quickly got shut down. Too easy for others to get in trouble. The second one was to make a petition for Flash to be expelled, but that would never stick with how much his parents donate to the school. His final idea stuck though. He knew this was going to change how he was viewed at school, but that didn't really matter, to be honest. He could test out at any time, no matter how much it would annoy May. But that didn't matter as he was of legal age. He didn't really have any friends there, as he and Ned drifted apart as Peter's trauma had matured him quickly. So no matter what little the Avengers thought of him. Though he did get along well with Wanda, Vision, Bruce, and on occasion Bucky, the rest treated him like a child. Well, besides Loki, of course. Peter went home as soon as he could so he could get through his homework as fast as possible. Current record at 26 minutes and 36.62 seconds. And organise his plans for the next day. When he woke up, he knew what to do. He knew how he wanted to dress to cause a statement about how he felt towards Flash's issue. As he had set it out the night before, it didn't take much time to put it together. He'd based it around an eyeshadow palette he bought for Loki, but he'd never gotten around to giving the gift. He supposed he never would now, since it was an eyeshadow palette he'd been planning to give to Loki. It was primarily in Loki's colours, meaning he had an elegant pair of forest green and gold heels. The heels went with a gorgeous emerald green oversized dress shirt which was tucked into a pair of high-waisted form-fitting leggings. He left for school with his head held high. He walked with an elegance that would have gone unnoticed if not for his heels. He knew this wasn't going to be easy. Not with how ignorant and cruel teenagers could be. But it wasn't about him, and for others he would walk to the ends of the earth for their protection. He walked to school standing tall as if he didn't notice the looks and whispers around him about him being a puff or a freak, and the occasional compliment from girls on his makeup skills. All was going well until Flash got involved. Well, look at little penis Parker, such a pretty girl. And that just made him angry, because in what world was pretty an insult? He knew he was trying to insult him by calling him a girl, but he couldn't care less about that. He was not going to take it this time. Why, thank you, Flash. I think I look just gorgeous. But I didn't know for sure until you confirmed it. Peter exclaimed with a smile that showed a sharp edge. He quickly pushed past Flash in favour of going to his locker, ignoring the look of fury that passed over Flash's face. Just as he finished collecting the things he needed, the bell rang. He hurriedly made his way to first class. Peter had thought the teachers would be rather accepting, considering they were here to teach, help, and guide. Unfortunately, they had not been accepting as they should have been. The first had sneered at him and called on him at every opportunity. The second had actively ignored him, and then came the third, and well, that didn't go all that great. Mr. Parker, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. May I ask why, sir? You're dressed inappropriately, he said with a harsh tone. In what way is it inappropriate, sir? Just get out of my classroom, Parker. I'll be there in a minute. It was clear he wasn't going to say any more. Parker had no choice but to go and wait outside. Peter had no choice but to go and wait outside. He'd only been outside the classroom for a minute when he got interrupted. Buzz, 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 buzz. He sighed and took out his phone to look at the corner, and there, blaring in his face, read Steve Rogers. He sighed once and put it to his ear. Parker, we're having a meeting and we need you here ASAP. I'm a little busy, Rogers. Maybe next time, he said with no small amount of exasperation. That wasn't a suggestion, Parker. We're going to be discussing team bonding exercises. Roger snarls, then proceeds to hang up the phone. He was going to weigh his options, but quickly came to realize there was no point. Yes, the consequences of ditching school would come, but they would be far lesser than consequences of ditching the adventures. He was quick to leave school and was lucky to leave uninterrupted. At first he considered walking or swinging, but then was quick to consider the fact he was wearing 9-inch heels, and that would be damn well near impossible. He went with the next best option and called a cab, giving the driver his destination, ignoring how he looked at his outfit. He near ran out of the cab after paying, the reality of the situation finally catching up with him. How dare they call him out of school for team bonding exercise? Did the bastards think he had nothing better to do with his life than spend it with the people who do nothing more than belittle him? He arrived in the meeting room in record time. He was bursting through the door before he could even think about what he was doing. The team turned to him with varying expressions, from shock to confusion to just plain disgust. Steve. Although out of all of the people in the room, he was drawn to one expression in particular, Loki's. It was a pleasant mix of shock, curiosity, and maybe a little amusement. Though to anyone who didn't know them, they seemed to have a cold aloofness. Loki was known to be gender fluid. Luckily for the rest of them, they had 3 forms for how they were feeling, and today it was clear they were using they/them pronouns. Unfortunately, he didn't have long to look because he was being dragged out of the room by Steve, and while he could have easily broken out of his grasp, he didn't wish to make a scene. He was manhandled down the corridor into another room. This is inappropriate attire for a meeting, Steve snarled. Really? I thought it was very progressive and supportive. Don't you think so? Peter said with one eyebrow raised and a smirk ghosting his features. I will not stand for it. It's bad enough, Loki. It's bad enough, Loki, what? Anger seeping into his voice. Don't you dare defend it. It doesn't belong here. Pure, unadulterated rage blinded his vision, and before he knew what happened, Rogers was on the ground after taking a clean right hook to the jaw and hitting his head off the wall. Rogers was clear knocked out, while Peter was sure he should feel bad about it, but he couldn't bring himself to do it. Friday. What happened here? Well, Mr. Parker, as far as I'm aware, you and Mr. Rogers had a civilized conversation. Then you left, and Mr. Rogers had the misfortune of slipping. Ah, the joys of being favoured by an AI. Friday, is everyone still in the meeting room? No, Mr. Parker. Though I should mention, Loki has requested you meet with him as soon as possible. And where is Loki? In their room, Peter. Thank you, Friday. Peter left the room, leaving Rogers where he fell, and made his way to Loki's room at a calm and totally not human-like speed. He approached the door and knocked gently. Come in. Peter opened the door slowly and walked in softly. There he found Loki sitting cross-legged on their bed, book in hand. How did you know it was me? Peter questioned gently. Why do you think I knew it was you? You wouldn't just let anyone in the team in. You knock so much softer than the others, they said with a soft smile that made Peter's heart skip a beat. So why did you want to see me as soon as possible? Peter said with an adorable mix of awkward and curious. I just wanted to know what this was about. They made a vague gesture towards his outfit. Well, some guy was being a prick at school, and I needed to make a statement. His hand unconsciously reaching up to rub the back of his neck. You needed to make a statement, they said, a small smirk. As a small smirk played across their face. Well, not needed. He suddenly felt overwhelmingly flustered and composed himself the best as he could. I couldn't morally sit by and do nothing. And what did he do to provoke your wrath? Amusement leaking off their every word. He just said some things about gender identity that made my blood boil. He was angry even thinking about it. And you couldn't have that now, could you, darling? They said, smirk growing with every word. Come, sit. Tell me how you made yourself so pretty in my colours. Peter hesitated for a moment before he crawled next to Loki on the bed. Peter took a deep breath and ignored the smug look on their face and started to explain. It was based on an eyeshadow palette I saw, and it was in your colours, so I bought it and mind's giving it to you. He let out a nervous huff and rubbed the back of his neck, keeping his eyes fixed on the floor. Then I forgot about it, and the rest was just sort of impulse buys. He trailed off, unsure how to continue. Well, I, for one, think you look gorgeous, darling. The small speech was enough for him to regain his confidence, and was quick to reply to the compliment. Thank you. You look rather stunning yourself, sweetheart. A soft smile gracing his features as he spoke. Loki knew they should be used to the endearments, especially when they started them. But after living their entire life mostly without them, they sometimes find themselves caught by surprise with how pleasant they could be. Peter knew he should be used to it by now. He knew that sometimes they startled them, no matter how many times the soft blush made its way onto their cheeks. It always made his stomach flip and his heart skip a beat. Neither of them fully knew it was happening Neither of them fully knew what happened until it was happening. Neither of them knew who leaned in or closed the gap. They were kissing before they even knew they wanted to. It was soft, and neither could believe how gentle the other was being. Mouths slowly opened as they explored one another. Gasps, whines, and gentle moans gradually making themselves known. Loki's hand slowly started to move from the back of his neck, ghosting down over his nipples, resulting in a quiet moan. They moved their hands further down, taking time to feel over every crease in his abs. They made their way down and hooked their elegant fingers under the top of the leggings with every intention of pulling them down, when Peter was quick to pull back with a sharp panic. "Stop!" Loki was quick to comply, no matter how hurt they were by it. They were quick to panic over the situation, afraid they had truly ruined their bond with Peter. "My apologies. Well, it was entirely my fault. No, wait, Loki, stop. That's not what I meant. He took a second to gather his thoughts. "I just don't want this to be a random one-night stand. I want to do this properly. Maybe a couple dates, a proper talk." "Oh," they said, a deep blush flushing over their cheeks. "I would like that very much, Peter."